That standoff near Waco began as a federal raid 51 days ago. The long standoff was full of unexpected twists and turns, which we all watched. So let's take a moment and go back now to trace it from the start on February 28th, when federal agents tried to serve a search warrant.
We were pinned down. 45 minutes of gunfire, automatic gunfire.
Our hearts go out to these brave agents who died today in the line of duty.
I told him, I said, get back. There's women and children here. Get back. I want to talk. And about that time, all of a sudden, 9mm rounds started firing at the front wall.
Welcome to Pod Caviar. Another great episode is about to occur. I have Graham from 1 Gram Army here
folks.
In the studio. Today we're going to be talking about the Waco Siege, the Branch Davidians against the United States government, essentially.
Yeah, basically carrying on your current theme of domestic and international terrorism.
The Trail of Terror.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. This also happened in 1993. 1993, if you remember the last episode where we talked about the first World Trade Center bomb, also happened in 1993. So 93 was really a big year for terror in a negative way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I guess depending on your perspective.
Right, depending on which side of the line you were on.
Yeah, it was a huge landmark, too, in my opinion, for the way America dealt with domestic terrorism and sort of the birth of the extreme anti-government version of America. That, you know, obviously, you're going to get into the Branch Davidians, but they became a huge rallying cry, them and Timothy McVeigh, for sentiments that carry on to this very day.
Exactly. The Branch Davidians, they had a nice compound in Waco, Texas. It was
quaint.
Yeah, it was quaint. Yeah.
Quaint corrugated tin compound there.
Yeah. They were actually formed in 1955 by Ben Roden. And this is, and I talked about this before. There's always when there's a cult, the leader, whoever the leader is, he can never just be like, "Hey man, this is what I thought up and I want you guys to follow me."
Right.
There's always a some sort of religious, spiritual reason. That just doesn't fit into a reality that most people subscribe to. And in this case, Ben Roden said that, okay, the story that I read was he was in his bed sleep. Okay, that's normal. All right. This is when
we're getting
the
into
normality.
Yeah, this is where like the birth of this movement starts.
Yeah, this is basically this is it. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was in his bed.
Okay.
He was sleeping.
We're accepting this as fact for right now.
And all of a sudden, shit started happening. The drape started blowing around, and then Christ himself came out of nowhere, grabbed him by his pajama top, lifted him up out the bed, and said, "Listen,
all right,
listen, you motherfucker, got some shit to tell you."
Yep.
Yeah. So he told Roden to write a letter, and then through the words of Christ, and he wanted Jesus wanted Ben to sign Ben's name to the letter. And Ben was like, "Look, I can't do this. These aren't my words." And Jesus was like, "First of all, number one, with you there with your pen and your paper, write down that my name ain't Jesus anymore. It's Branch. Okay."
Okay. So now, Good. All right. Yeah. I don't know if you want to spend too much time on this because I feel like I can spend a long time sort of dissecting this event.
Let's spend let's spend a few minutes on this just so we can get this out of our system.
Absolutely. Get into the more objective realities of the way it all ended.
Yeah. He just told him his name is Branch, and he made him write this letter in Branch Christ, I guess. Yeah. He wanted him to sign. He wanted Mr. Roden to sign his name, and then Ben Roden was like, I'm not going to do this because it's not my name. And then Branch Christ was like, "Look, I'm telling you to do this, and then I want you to go ahead and start this movement." And that's how Branch Davidians essentially started.
So Jesus shows up,
yeah,
with some paperwork,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
to is it some sort of chartering contract, or is it a letter to someone?
It was
or
just,
is it just it's their doctrine, and then
it's their doctrine.
Jesus
He said
was like,
that,
"Hey,
yeah,
just sign this."
He learned it through that encounter with Christ, and then that he learned it through the Bible. Now, I'm unsure what version of the Bible he was reading or what he learned, was taught out of. I never saw anything that said
specifically he came from this denomination. Or
right,
this denomination.
right, yeah, or that Jesus changed his name in the Bible
Branch.
to Branch.
Yeah, I'm not. Could be a misinterpretation. I mean, generally with those kind of things,
Yeah.
you can. Historically, it's been shown that a clever mind can bend that to whichever direction
That's
they
true.
like.
That's
You know,
true.
they can interpret it however they like and pass
Yeah.
those interpretations on to other people.
Right.
But the first thing that struck me when you started telling me about this is I feel like in the pantheon of God, the Abrahamic God talking to people.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty good approach, because you go all the way back to the Old Testament,
Right.
where he tells that guy to kill his kids, and
Yeah.
then he tells Noah there's going to be a flood,
Right.
and then he's constantly intervening in people's lives. Then you
Mm-hmm.
get into the New Testament, and Jesus shows up, and God's intervening a little bit there in the early part,
Right.
but largely after that, you're kind of in a world of silence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far
Yeah.
as God coming down,
Right.
telling us how things are. So then you have Islam, you have Muhammad. So now God's like, okay, you guys aren't quite getting this right. Talk to this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to set you guys straight.
Yeah.
Right.
It's essentially being switched between people when you call customer service.
Right.
You can walk
It's
your way up
very-
that ladder.
It's very similar, you
Yeah.
know. Well, or I think in some respects too, though, it may be, it's like if you were trying to, explain something to someone, but you had to keep
Yeah.
going through another person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're trying to or you had some product and you were like a hermit, and you're like, I need someone to sell this product.
Yeah.
You have to keep picking new people, and you give them a little bit of a run, and then you're like, hey, look, man, you're not really getting
Yeah.
the job done here. Your numbers
Yeah.
are down.
Yeah.
These guys are doing all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy shit. So I need to send another guy down there to
Yeah.
talk
I mean,
to him.
it happens in life every day, you know?
And I'm no religious scholar. I know that'll come as a shock to a lot of people, but I believe that I basically believe that between Muhammad and John Smith,
Yeah.
there's like about 1,800 years of
There is,
a
yeah.
gap
Yeah.
in notable appearances. I'm sure people claimed
Of course,
appearances,
yeah.
but
There's always
they have to be
people that- yeah.
verifiable by enough
Right.
people willing to give you money
Yeah.
for your
Yeah, no,
claims
you
to be
have to have
accurate.
some sort of aura around you that people will look to
Yeah.
you and say, wow, he's really.
I'll give that guy
Yeah.
money, and
Yeah.
then we'll be totally down to allow this
Of
to
course,
become
yeah, yeah,
part of
and
our
then
doctrine.
it happened with the Branch Davidians. It happened with the what is it? The people who thought the aliens were coming back.
Yep,
and,
yeah,
you
the
know,
Hale-Bopp Comet
yeah,
folks.
yeah.
But
It
all
just-
of that
it happens
though,
more and more.
yeah, and all of that though to say that I appreciate Jesus' style and God's style in this one, where they just show up with
Yeah.
paperwork and they're like, look, just sign it. Just sign it. This is what I'm really saying.
That's how it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This
You
is
wanna
what
follow
I'm
it?
really
You
saying.
wanna follow it? No,
okay?
I'm here,
I've tried
and here it is.
I've tried communicating this through all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And events and obscure, indefinable occurrences. So
Right.
now I'm showing up with paperwork.
Yeah.
Look,
Here it
listen,
is.
You're the guy. What's his name? Ben
Ben Roden, yeah.
Ben, you're the dude in Texas.
This story actually, when I started researching it, I was like, well, this is gonna be some fucking loony bin story.
Yeah.
But it was actually pretty. There's a lot of twists and turns.
I would imagine.
So moving forward, the church got bigger and bigger. People started joining by droves, and then Ben Roden was the leader, and he was just teaching them his version of the gospel,
Right.
essentially.
They probably started out as one of those like tent revival things
Yeah.
that happen in Texas pretty regularly.
Yeah, it did. And in 1981, a very interesting person, Vernon Howe, joined, and he rose through the ranks of the Branch Davidians through his years, and then he became a leader in 1986, and he started teaching himself. In fact, he woke up one day and he
Jesus
said
creep in
that-
his window.
it didn't say, but he did. He did become a self-proclaimed final prophet.
Ooh.
So I imagine he did get some visit from
a sidebar
from JC himself.
Yeah, a sidebar here for all listeners.
Yeah.
This is if you run across this in your life, if there's any practical application of this podcast, if someone tells you that they're the final prophet of anything, please report that person
immediately.
Please keep an eye on that person.
Yeah.
Keep him away from anything you care about.
Yeah.
And just ensure that the proper authorities are aware of this person.
Please do.
Out of the gate.
Yeah.
And that's all. Yeah.
Because I'm not really.
I don't sponsor snitching.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a fan of government list and watch list for like normal people.
Yeah.
You know, pretty sure you and I are on it just off this podcast alone. But
yeah.
But if I'm just walking around and then some guy was like, I'm the final prophet with the wide fucking crazy eyes and shit and that intense stare.
That guy needs to be on a no-fly list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nothing good comes off of final prophets.
No, there's.
There's never. No.
No one who ever says they're the final prophet is like, and I brought candy. Right. You know what I mean? Just never have.
I'm the final prophet and I got a grill with burgers back there. You hungry?
We're having a final prophet cookout.
Right. It's always, I'm the final prophet. Aliens are coming. Need you to drink this Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
at this specific time.
Yeah.
We can all die and they'll take us to the alien planet.
I don't need all your money. I don't need to have sex with all your wives. And
right.
We're all going to kill ourselves. Woo.
At that point, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, excuse me, what the fuck? Yeah. But then there's an equal or sometimes greater amount of people that be like, really?
Yeah.
Go on.
Like
tell me more.
Yeah.
I don't need the pamphlet. I'm just listening to you.
Yeah.
I'm down.
You've piqued my interest.
Exactly.
Well, there's plenty of people that subscribe to all kinds of religions where they're like, I'm not reading your pamphlet. Right. You just tell me.
You had me at hello.
Yeah. Have I derailed this sufficiently yet? It's just not my intention, but I think it's inevitable if we're going to talk about a radicalized American cult,
right?
That we get to the root of the insanity of their beliefs.
Yeah,
in an effort to give your listeners a fighting chance.
No.
If someone in their neighborhood is like, "Hey, I'm the final prophet."
No, and I like this open conversation. That's why I like having you here because I could have just been talking about this shit myself,
absolutely.
But. When you got a back and forth going on, and even though we're essentially on the same side, we have
it helps to incubate ideas.
Exactly,
we're always willing to accept the other one's proposals and think about it in different ways. Nah, this is quality podcasting.
After how,
no, keep a straight face after that.
After how claimed that he was the final prophet, he split the faction, the cult. Yeah, so it was people that were riding with Ben Roden, and there were people who were riding with Vernon Howe.
Damn.
Yeah.
Ben Roden had to be getting on in years at that point.
Yeah, he was. In fact, let's see, what did I write down? Split the faction and prevailed after multiple shootouts. Yes, that's what I want to talk about. These motherfuckers got armed, and it was like some Gangs of New York shit.
Yeah, so
where
the shootouts wasn't a new phenomenon.
No.
Wow.
After... let's see. Vernon Howe became the new leader of the Branch Davidians, but Ben Roden's son, George Roden, he had his group in his new faction. This is when the compound really comes into power because Ben's son, he controlled the compound until Howe controlled the compound until the final shootout with the ATF. Yeah. So
initially the compound was to protect themselves from like rival members of their own situation, or they had shootouts with the law?
No, they had shootouts between each other.
Yeah, so initially the compound was like an internal protection from the warring factions.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
You keep taking an eye off of Texas. Keep taking an eye off of Texas for 2 seconds. You can't let those people
and
do
that's
anything,
exactly what happened. Yeah. Here's a couple more tidbits before we get into the siege.
Yeah.
How actually, now we're getting to the nitty gritty right here.
All right.
How screwed Ben Roden's wife, Lois Roden, had an affair.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. So
Getting juicy.
Yeah. George Roden found out about that shit, and then that's really what escalated the it was more fuel to the fire, man. I mean, when you have your father, he brings this cult, and then you got all this shit, and then this fucking guy out of nowhere comes out of, he just shows up like, I'm gonna find a prophet. Y'all, come on in. I don't know what those guys are saying. Yeah, and then he fucks your mother, essentially.
Yeesh.
I fucked your mother is like.
Actually, I have a recording of his response right here. It was.
The line must be drawn here.
Yeah.
This far, no farther.
Sorry.
And then just to go for game Caviar for a little while, anybody who played Modern Warfare 2 back when it first came out, those pre-game lobbies where everybody had a microphone and everybody was talking shit. Yep. Everybody fucked everybody's mother back then. But then when it happens literally with a guy that split the faction that your father worked so hard to,
it predates Shakespearean storytelling. It's one of the oldest stories.
Yeah.
It's like, it banged your mom.
Yeah.
The Oedipus is like one of the oldest stories ever told.
That's
and
true.
It's about a guy who accidentally banged his own mom.
Right.
I will say this, sidebar real quick, because I just need to put this out in the universe. I think it's unfair to the memory of the character of Oedipus to call it an Oedipus complex when someone wants to bang their mom, because he didn't want to. It happened. It was a horrible convergence of circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, even the description, you accidentally bang your own mother. There's a series of unfortunate events that lead up to that.
There's a great deal of horrible shit that happened to this dude up until he just has this realization. Yeah. And then I think there's a line in there too where he says something about having plowed the field from which he was spurred.
But away with words.
Yeah.
Away with words.
Anyway, sorry. But that's one of the oldest stories ever told. So this has that Shakespearean aspect to it.
It does. It really does.
Like
and then through many different events and then conflicts, Hal gained most of the support. Hal and 7 others of his followers, they raided the Mount Carmel Center, which is the main part of the compound, on 1987 in November with they've described it as a small arsenal, but I wrote down exactly what they had. This small arsenal, they had 5 .223 rifles, 2 .22s, 2 12 gauge shotguns, and approximately 400 rounds of ammo.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean,
Yeah. For 8 people.
With 8 people with the intention of not being touched.
Yeah.
That's that's fine. You know what I mean? That's sufficient for sure.
They said
for people who don't know, real quick, the .223 round. This is a current discussion going on in this country that drives me insane because I see it on Facebook and Twitter all the time. The .223 round is the same as a 5.56 round. One is standard measurement and one is metric. Yeah. So the .223 round that goes in an AR-15 is exactly the same as the 5.56 round that goes into an M15 or any of those British weapons that all fire that same NATO round.
Yeah.
So just for edification purposes,
But they were looking for evidence, quote unquote, of illegal activity by George Rodin. But they brought all that shit, that small arsenal of weapons and ammo, but they forgot a camera. One of the things that you generally need when you're looking for evidence of illegal activity is some sort of video, something, a confession, or I don't know.
So is there a chance they were trying to pin all these weapons on them, and then, accidentally it turned out they had a lot more guns, and it would get much more messy? They basically just had a big-ass shootout, and then what happened was there was some sort of council. It got really murky after that because it said that a trial was held and that Hal was found innocent, essentially, and that George Roman was blamed for a bunch of shit, like digging up old people and saying that he was going to reanimate them. But I didn't find out whether it was by a law enforcement or some group of people within this faction, whether they have a neutral party that wasn't spoken of that came on and was like, well, we heard your side, and we're going to go with this Hal guy. Jeez.
Yeah.
This is some sort of like kangaroo court, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, pretty much. But you got to understand, you're in Texas, Waco, Texas. Texas itself.
Ain't shit out there.
Yeah, right. It's big as shit. So
Huge.
who knows what goes on out there? This type of shit could be going on right now.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't even fucking hear about it at all.
Yeah, well, consider those distances and those spaces out there. There might be like outlaw gangs of
Exactly,
dudes hanging
yeah.
out with each other.
Yeah.
And just, if you drove through, it looked like,
Right.
Town, USA. But
Exactly.
really, it was like always sort of on the verge of being under siege.
Yeah, yeah. Or some group can come through and buy the whole town. Like,
Yep.
what's the? Have you ever seen what is it? Wild Wild Country, I think it's called on
Yeah,
Netflix,
yeah.
where they
I
came
haven't
through.
watched that all the way through,
Watch
but I
that
need
shit
to.
because that
Yeah.
shit is crazy too. Yeah. For anybody who's listening and follow it, you may not have heard of Vernon Howe, but you have heard of Vernon Howe because sometime in between he joined the Branch Davidians in the end when the ATF stormed it, he changed his name to David Koresh.
That was sick. Sick. Because you know what I was waiting for?
What's that?
You know what I was waiting for?
When David Koresh
When
came
David
into
Koresh
yeah.
came into this.
Yeah, see,
You
we
did
talk
well.
about this all
You
the time.
deserve this. The shit-eating grin Tony has on his face right now is so well deserved. Because he had me. This is one of those things where I think I have some idea of how it works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
damn, dude. Sick.
But yeah, after all that, David Koresh, essentially, he was the leader of the compound.
Stupid the fucking game.
There was a lot of things that happened in that compound. There was weapons. There were teachings that were going on. There were families being raised, and there was just a lot of things. And it finally got the attention of the United States government, and they decided that they were going to go in and pretty much take over.
Right.
Because they had enough evidence. They felt that they had enough evidence to go in.
Shit
and
was
then,
crazy in there.
Yeah, and then this is where the the 51-day siege started.
God, there's so many factors there, man. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, there's a lot of shit.
There's so much
Yeah.
going on there too. Because if you consider it,
And I didn't know that when I started researching it, because when we saw it was like the ATF is going in here to get these bad people, but then when you start really researching it from the beginning, it's like, wow,
it was
holy
one of
shit.
it was one of the first news stories from when I was a kid that I remember. Like the more details came out, the more difficult it was for me in my mind as a child to understand. Like, oh wait, so it's possible that like the government burned all these people alive,
Right.
And neither one of my parents are like wackos. Like no one in my house was like they broke in there, killed that freedom fighter. Like that wasn't how I grew up. Like nobody really, everyone was just sort of watching it, happen just like everyone else. But I do remember those early feelings as a kid, to be like, wow, it's possible that they like just burned all those people in there.
Yeah.
And then you pull back from that. Now you're older and wiser, allegedly. The just sort of this idea of like the power of that kind of rhetoric, and sort of the overarching argument of people who are. And I'm like, I don't have beef with the Second Amendment by any stretch, but people who are like wackadoo supporters of the Second Amendment, their excuse is always like, well, I have these guns in case the government comes. And I'm like, dude, you're going to fight the Marines? Like, you're some fat
That's
dude
what I'm saying. Yeah,
you're some fat guy
Not
that
even
works.
the Marines.
Yeah.
If the ATF,
you're not going to fight off your local law enforcement.
All right.
You know
No,
what I mean?
you're not.
But they now, with this sort of thing, allows them to cling to that dream too. Like, well, look what Koresh did. You know, like, but
That
also,
or Ruby Ridge, where the government was flat out wrong.
yeah. Or, you know,
know.
look at this, though, too. This is the battle cry always of Charlton Heston holding up that gun.
Fuck
and
yeah.
saying, from my cold, dead fingers. I just want to let other listeners know that if you will let your guns go, when they pry them from your cold, dead fingers, and you're talking about the U.S. government, they will oblige you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at David Koresh.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you would take up arms against the U.S. government.
Yeah, this is what's going to happen to you.
And now this has already happened. So now we're like, well, we can have another one of these.
Right.
The next
because
the next
this whole siege set the precedent.
Yeah.
So
The next
essentially
asshole that
what you were
does
saying,
this
right,
is going to get drone striked
Yeah.
domestically. And
Yeah.
then we're going to be living in a world of shit.
because even when Obama was president, and they asked him that question, like, would you say that you are against drone striking people? And he was like, no.
No, they asked him. They were like, "Would you rule out?"
Yeah, rule
would
out.
you
That's what I
ever
was looking
rule
for,
out-
yeah.
No, I remember this. This shit is seared in my
Yeah.
brain. But they asked him, "Would you ever rule out using a drone strike domestically.
Yeah.
And all he had to do was say, of course, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
We would never use a fucking sky death robot. But then you're like, think about it from his perspective. He uses it to kill people all over the world every day.
Yeah.
Authorizes like, well, this one guy's really bad. He is hiding behind that school in Pakistan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was hiding there.
Yeah. So why would it, but that's what I'm saying, though, is you could have just said no and I could sleep at night.
Right.
But yeah, the next asshole that pulls this David Koresh shit
No,
is
yeah.
going to get...
And I believe that even if we had drones back then that we used, if the ATF had did the initial raid and then they got, they reached heavy gunfire and then they fell back, they could have just called them and like, hey, man, we need a drone strike. And then all of a sudden,
yeah, we got target right here.
Yeah, exactly.
We cleared the fire. We cleared the fire. Firing.
Yeah, and it's over.
Yeah, it's a wrap. The problem is, too, though, is that now we're going to move into a world soon where if some asshole does this, they just send up one little drone with like with a nice little sized bomb on it and just drop it in the middle of their shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, God.
You know what?
Dude, Boston Dynamics.
No, they've done that. They've done that. When there was, last year, there was a domestic, there was a guy, there was a mass shooting in Texas.
They shot that guy.
No, he was in like a parking garage, and they sent a robot with a bomb, and they just dropped. It was a grenade, but they just dropped it on him, and that's how they killed him.
That's not the guy in Dallas, was it?
Yeah, that's how they killed him.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
Damn, that got lost in the storyline.
Fuck yeah, it
Even
did.
in my mind, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah, they sent in
That was
they
literally how he
sent in-
was.
They sent
'Cause
in
he
a
was there.
suicide robot.
Yeah, and he was like, I ain't leaving, and they were like, well, shit, you're going.
welcome to Texas.
Right? Yeah.
Ooh.
If you want to do some crazy shit, don't do it in Texas. Don't do it don't do it, period.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna do it,
Go to Florida.
Stay stay out of the southern states.
Except Florida, because Florida.
Yeah,
seems
Florida
to
is
have
like Florida reminds me of Mad Max.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Every time I go to Florida, I'm concerned, and this is funny, but it's also absolutely true in my mind.
Right.
I always feel like let's say I go to Florida, and I gotta take my girlfriend down there, and we go to like Tampa for a few days, and then we go stop at a hotel. If we went into the Wendy's near the hotel at like 8 o'clock in the evening and were murdered by a guy with a chainsaw, most people who read that story would be like, oh, I shouldn't have went to Florida.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you hear a Florida man or something that happens in Florida, it's always something crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what the fuck?
I could
I think
derail
they just
the
had a
shit
shooting
out of your podcast right now by looking up all my Florida man headline emails that I get automatically.
Yeah, I know. I follow a Florida man on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think they just had a shooting in Florida at a hot yoga studio. Maybe it was in Florida, maybe not, but the mass shootings in America happen so much that we get that you can't even keep up with them anymore.
Yeah, but how many times though in Florida does a story involve someone throwing an alligator at someone?
Yeah. Oh no, it happens a lot.
Okay, more than once a year is way often.
Right.
For someone to take a giant dinosaur with teeth and throw it at another person in an effort to get some sort of strange revenge, some sort of strange Florida revenge.
There was a guy in Florida who was drunk and he came in a convenience store for alligator and then he threw it at somebody.
Yep, and then another guy another guy tried to rob a Wendy's and he threw an alligator in through the drive-thru.
That's such a weird weapon.
The drive-thru.
It sounds like when people make mods for Grand Theft Auto,
right?
You know, when you get the fucking alligator gun, and you're like, well, okay, but it's Florida, and it happened in reality.
It happens in real life.
Yeah.
Well, they have the car gun in Florida too, apparently, because cars drive into shit in Florida, like crazy.
Yeah.
Through the front of restaurants, through the front of buildings, through the side, like at a downward angle sometimes, somehow into like the 5th floor of a condo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, that's weird.
Sorry. I mean, although you are doing an episode about cults in America and crazy shit happening, Florida does deserve a nod.
Of course.
You want to leave them out.
Let's take a break.
people have to use the bathroom. It happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, shit happens. But anyway, we're back. Pretty much the Waco Siege happened. FBI and the ATF, it was a joint operation. 28 February 93, 9:45 a.m. That's when the initial raid happened. 4 ATF agents were tragically killed. 16 were wounded. The compound burned down after 51 days. Koresh and approximately 80 followers died. Now, there's a lot of... I know people have seen the tank burst into the side of the building and then it caught on fire. There's been a lot of discussion about that and a lot of conspiracy, and people thought that the government just basically went in and burned all those people down. There is evidence that they were tipped off. The Branch Davidians were tipped off. That is proved. That has been proven. So they set up the inside.
Through that side
yeah, they were set up inside where they had hay and gasoline. They had hay that was soaked with gasoline, so that when the tear gas came in, it ignited that, and then they didn't have enough time to get out of there before they died. So after 51 days, and Koresh said that if you broadcast my sermon over the radio, then we'll surrender. But then that didn't happen. So when you push the United States government into a corner, guess what? They're gonna fucking
they're not gonna shed a lot of tears about burning you alive.
No.
51 days.
51 days
of
dude.
A domestic siege. is pretty fucking insane.
I mean, that's just speaking from a strategic standpoint, they were dug in pretty deep as far as being in the trenches. 51 days is a long ass time when you got the United States government coming after you while you're in the United States of America, right?
In one central geographic location.
Right, yeah. And it wasn't like, they were in a different country where we had to deploy troops and mobilize infantry and all that shit. No, they were in Texas.
Right.
So
where there's already a lot of government assets when it comes to shooting people.
There were a lot of eyes on all of this. I know I've seen it. You've seen it. Absolutely. We grew up when that happened. And there were a lot of people worldwide that saw it. And then there were a lot of people who actually drove to right outside the compound, essentially the quarantine zone, where you couldn't go past that unless you were law enforcement. One of those people was a former United States service member who slowly became disillusioned with the American dream, and he went by the name of Timothy McVeigh. Who we will talk about next episode.
Yeah, I know we did Timothy McVeigh, didn't we?
No, we did the Ryder truck. Which
we're going in depth.
We're going in depth.
Well, that's an excellent transition, sir. Well, walk us into this thing we're gonna play here at the end. And
we found a clip of what happened, what was going on inside of the compounds.
It's not against law to buy a firearm. It's not against law to buy anything that they sell at a gun show. And when this is all resolved, hey, yellow sheet is legal. An accusation is not. And bringing these tanks and stuff around here, I tell you what, being an American first, I'm the kind of guy that I'll stand in front of a tank. You can run over me, but I'll be biting one of the tracks. No one's going to hurt me or my family. That's American policy here. You could have arrested me any day as I jog up and down this road. You could have arrested me going to town or going to Walmart. Waco is going to bear witness against the ATF. The two agents across the street over here, Robert Gonzalez, I love the guy. I was honest with him. I brought him into my home. He was going to stay here for 2 weeks. All this stuff you guys may want to avoid and deny. He wanted to tour around the place. I promised him a tour. He could have talked to any of these guys around here, anybody. He was free to come and go as he chose. And I do not appreciate it, and never will I ever appreciate somebody coming here with 2 helicopters and cattle trailers and all that, and pushing people around with guns. Hey, I'll meet you at the doorstep any day. And somebody will get hurt. If you want to keep playing that game, I'm talking to you. Somebody's going to get hurt. Because this ain't America anymore when the ATF has that kind of power to come into anybody's home and kick doors down and things like that. Now, I do understand, someone reminded me of this, I do understand that one of the officers says his gun went off on accident. And that, that was just like a signal and all that, But look, beside the point, ATF, you boys are wrong. Your practices, your habits, yeah. Drug dealers, fine. But even there's always a question, if there's any question whatsoever. The kids or women are involved, damn you, I tell you what, you keep your damn gun in your holster. You send a couple of big, brave, invincible kind of men, you let them knock on the door. If they're so damn involved to where they can risk their lives for the name of the law, then send them up bulletproof, put them in some kind of night armor or whatever, and let them knock on the door and ask the questions first. But no one's going to expect me, when they come busting in on my door with guns drawn and pointed in the air, and someone fires me, that I'm going to lay down and die for anybody. That just ain't going to happen in this country. God speaks to me. I have a message to present. You may not believe that. If you don't believe that, then believe this. Irrespective of God speaking to me. You see this here? Hey, this is my family. It may not be like your family. It may not be like your family. This one here, he's my family too, right, Joseph?
Yeah.
Tell him, look in that camera and tell him what you think about it. Who's treated you good?
David.
Do you mind that, son? Huh? Do you love Joseph? Your best buddies?
Yeah.
You too, Damon? So, you guys, you do it your way, I do it my way. You got to argue with me, you catch me on the side of the road somewhere, you come and argue with me. You come point guns in the direction of my wives and my kids, damn it, I'll meet you at the door any time. And I'm sorry some of you guys got shot. But, hey, God will have to sort that out, won't he?